What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a wonderful day. Me, I'm gonna put some more parts on the Subaru, so let's get to it. Went and picked up another part for the Subaru. Here it is. It's another Cobb piece, and it's their lightweight crank pulley. Let's go ahead and get this installed on the car. First thing we need to do, we need to get this hood popped up. And then after that, we got to go ahead and remove this cover. So we're trying to get down to this pulley right here. Make sure that we can replace this one. It's going to be kind of a pain with this stretch fit belt, but I think we'll get through it. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into this bolt, which looks like it might be a 10 millimeter, and then we got to go in and get the 12 millimeter to loosen the alternator, to slack up the alternator belt. One bolt off, and then the other side's held in by a little pressure clip. Lift it up, put that, sure, right there. Now we can get to this tensioner belt, and it also has a bolt that's underneath the belt right here that we have to loosen. This keeps pressure on it, and then we can go ahead and screw this out to loosen this belt up. Go ahead and we'll loosen up this bolt. Now that that's loose, we'll go ahead and swap this over onto our drill. And then loosen this bolt up. Now the alternator is loose, but it's not really loose. We've got a little bit of slack in this, but we don't have as much as we need to take it off. So there's actually another 12 millimeter hiding down in here that we need to go ahead and loosen. Don't take off, just loosen it. And it's the other side of the alternator holding the bracket on there. So it looks like a small extension is going to really help me out here. There we go. Now that that one's loose, this alternator has a whole bunch of room to move around. If we loosen this more, we can get it to go down even more, but that looks like it'll be enough to get this belt off of here. There we go. Pull it off the harmonic balancer. One done. Now the second one is going to be kind of a challenge because it's a stretch fit. You notice it only goes between the harmonic balancer and the AC pump. That's it. There's no other tensioner. It just relies on the belt stretching to keep it held in there. So before I get this belt off though, I'm going to go ahead and get our 7/8 bolt and make sure that this comes loose for me. Once this comes loose, then it'll make it a lot easier to get this loose now while we have some tension on it, and with the vehicle in gear and the parking brake engaged. That will make it so that we can get this 7/8 bolt off, because 9 times out of 10 it's gonna be stuck on there pretty good. So we'll go get a cheater bar, 7/8, and break that bolt loose. Well, after going ahead and giving it a couple turns, I got some load on the transmission, which is held in by the ground by the tires, and managed to get it knocked loose. So now we've got a loose bolt, and it took me a couple turns to actually get it to where it preloaded and got some tension on the crankshaft. So got that loose. Now we'll go ahead and get this belt off here and see if we can get it off. I'm going to go ahead and take it out of gear now so that we can spin the engine over and pry this off one tooth at a time with a screwdriver. While yes, there is a part to actually get this belt on and off, it isn't 100% necessary. Don't get me wrong, it helps out a ton and it makes the job really, really easy, but it can be done without using their special part. The easiest way that I've found is you get yourself a little pry bar. You put this pry bar for getting off, you put it behind the belt against the alternator, and then there's a little bolt right there. Put it on that bolt. That will hold it. Make sure you hold it still, and then go ahead and rotate the engine clockwise. That will make sure that this belt comes off, and we'll get it off of this alternator bracket. Slowly work our way off of it, and then as we get less and less tension on this, we'll go ahead and we'll pry this bar out a little more, and that will give it a little bit more tension pulling it out. So I'll set you guys up and see if I can do it with you. Just like that. Now I know that using a screwdriver probably isn't the best method, especially if you're struggling with it or if you're getting a little aggravated like I do sometimes. You get mad at it, you start reefing on it, and that causes it to overstretch the belt and then causes it to chunk out. Or if you catch it in between the AC pump, you can have a lot of problems that way. So it's not the best way to do it, but it does work. That being said, do it at your own risk. If you want to, you can get the piece. It's on Amazon. It's really, really cheap. It's a little plastic piece. Broke mine, so I don't have it anymore. But this method works good enough for me. So do it at your own risk, but it can be done. Now that all the belts are off, we'll go ahead and remove this balancer now. Go put the car in gear. Now that we've got the car in gear, we've got a lot of the preload taken out of it. We can go ahead, and it works best to give it a nice sharp push or real hard push real quick to get it to go loose. And then it pops right loose. You should be able to. Makes it easier. Take the socket off. Go ahead and just remove that screw. Out. Done. Now here comes the fun part, because you can't pry on this plastic piece, but luckily this balancer comes off pretty easy just by hand. But it'll take both hands, and you kind of got to wiggle it back and forth, up and down, left and right, whatever, to get that off. But once it starts to come, it will come off. If you're having problems, take a little rubber mallet and tap on it, give it some little bit of loosening, and it should come right off. Well, there it is. We've got the OEM harmonic balancer and the new lightweight harmonic balancer. And there's a considerable amount of weight between the two. I don't even know if I have a scale to measure this that high. I'll see if I can find a scale. So it turns out there's actually a lot more weight difference than I even thought there was between the two. The OEM one weighs in at 5.8 pounds, whereas the new Cobb one weighs in at 1.2 pounds. That's a difference of 4.6 pounds. That's a lot in rotating mass that is going to be off of the engine, or off of the load of what the engine is actually producing. So that's cool. It'll be a little harder shifts, but it's a lot less rotating mass. And hopefully when I go and get to the transmission or clutch or do something later on down the line, I'm going to put a lightweight flywheel in it as well. So that will be a lot less rotating mass, a lot less stress on the bearings and everything that's in the car. So we'll go ahead, put the new one in, be 4.6 pounds lighter, and hopefully have a lot better throttle response. Now with this, I'm gonna have to disconnect the battery. Well, you can disconnect the battery. It's always a good practice to reset the ECU once you've done engine modifications. This isn't a huge engine modification, but it will help. The engine's already learned to a certain point and it knows what it's expecting. So when you go ahead, you disconnect the battery, it sets it back down to this point and it makes different parameters for how the engine's running. I'm changing kind of how the engine's going to be running, so I'm going to go ahead and reset it. Now, one of the ways you can do that, you can take your battery terminal off, disconnect your battery, and let it set for a second, touch the brakes, get rid of all that energy, and that will reset the ECU and it will relearn. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reload my map, and that will reload how the engine goes, because I don't want to go through and reset all of my radio stuff and my Bluetooth stuff that I have set up, and a lot of my stuff runs off the battery, and once it goes dead, it's a kind of a pain. So I'm just gonna go ahead and reset the map or reapply the map to the car. Since it's there, it's easy enough for me to do. I can just go ahead and do that. So we'll go ahead, put this on, and then reload the map, and hopefully we'll be good to go. So here is the end of the crankshaft, and you can see that there's a keyway on it where the pin has to sit. That keyway is right here. It's just a little peg. So double check that. Make sure that it's staying there, because it's just a little half moon that connects that piece, has a little divot in it, and then the crankshaft or the harmonic balancer has a keyway or a hole in it that sits in. So definitely make sure that that didn't come out and that's staying there or hasn't fallen out, anything funny like that. So now it's in there. Now we'll go ahead and install this new harmonic balancer. So this is probably going to be the hardest part of the install by far. And what makes it hard is that this AC compressor spins freely. So it will spin while the engine's not spinning. So what that means is we need to put it on to the crank. We need to have the crank pull the belt around while it's getting seated on there. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to barely put it on there and work it all the way around to get to the other side. Now, it's gonna be kind of interesting because I really don't want to scratch up this new part that we just put in. So I don't want to be using screwdrivers, but I might have a clamp that I can clamp on and actually hold this on here and get it on the first ribs to go around. So we've managed to get it on, get the AC compressor started, but as you can see, the belt is off on this lower pulley. So we're gonna have to go ahead and push on this while it's turning over to get it in the right position. Now we've got it started. We've got it started on this side, rotating it around, and you can see that this side's still off. So we'll go ahead and we'll keep rotating it to make sure that that belt goes on where it needs to go on to. Give it a couple extra revolutions, make sure that it's staying on there, and that's the stretch belt is on. Now we'll go ahead and move on to the AC belt here. Go around, not our AC, our power steering and alternator. Put it around your power steering, put it around the make sure that all the grooves are lined up. Then go ahead and tighten everything down. Starting with your alignment or your tensioner. Now that we've got enough tension in it, we can push the belt a little bit, but it doesn't have a whole bunch of flex in it. You can double check. I use this stretch one to double check and see how it's actually compared to the other one. So make sure they're pretty close. Go ahead and put the locking plate, tighten that one down. After we've set our tension and put the locking pin on it, I always like to give this a little bit more tension to make sure that it's holding. Make sure that it's got a good hold between both of these, that they don't shake loose. And then don't forget, we've undone the bracket on the other side of the alternator, so we'll just tighten that up real quick. Make sure that that's nice and tight. Now we can reinstall our cover, and it's got the push clip on the back side. Just pops right down in there. And then our 10mm. Done. Now that we got all that done, we'll go ahead and set up our map. We'll go back out of our data log stuff. get our map, change our map. Find the map that we need. We'll go ahead and put it back on the car. Now that our map's all dialed in, we can go back to our gauges and start the vehicle. Now that we've had the car running, double check that all the pulleys are staying where they need to stay and all the grooves are in the right spot. It feels like everything's good. So we'll close the hood, be done with it. Well, sweet, that's done. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna take off. Maybe I'm gonna go enjoy a nice ride in the car, see how it handles now. If you found this helpful, leave a like. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Peace.